All right, Shalom. You reached the He Prayed channel. My name is Isaac Mawath. But first and foremost, I want to say call Halayim, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harakhakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders. 7:13:19, where I learned this truth from, and who rule well. Salutations to the Bakiyar, the elect, 144,000. That's 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 tribes of Israel consist of you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous of America. The 144,000 being the governing body within the one-third. The rest of the one-third comprises of elect men, women, and children. Shalom to those Israelites scattered due to the diaspora and also the triangular trade. So our people come looking like different ethnicities, having various complexions. So it's not a black thing. We're not the black Hebrew Israelites. We're just Hebrew Israelites. Shalom to those that died in this truth. Says the dead should be raised up first. Those that will be accompanying Yahweh Shah on his return, including our King, King Mashah, who is King David. And as always, it's an honor and privilege, honor and blessing to continue to do this work. The water Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem, Harakach Wadash for answer my prayers and permitting me to do such. Baba Bashar Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem, Harakach Wadash. Allow this to be an edifying lesson to at least one member of the elect. And this is for educational purposes only.
Listen up, parents. Want to start building generational wealth and happiness for your children in less than 10 minutes?
Yeah, so basically, as the title reads, Iran eyes Su-57 to rival Israel's F-35 as Russia confirms mystery buyer. China signals J-20 deal. So now the Most High put it in the spirit for this business transaction to go down, where Iran is going to receive one of the most capable fifth generation fighters, which America is afraid of because, they always downplay things that they're afraid of. And they've been downplaying the Su-57, which has super maneuverability due to, what do they call it? Vectoring nozzles, I believe it's the proper term, in which the thrust on the engine can move independently, giving it super maneuverability, as you've seen in the movie Top Gun, the latest one with Tom Cruise. And I'm into fighter jets and fighter planes. Big fan, avid fan of Ace Combat, the whole Ace Combat series I grew up on, doing missions and learning about aviation. But here's another clip, and then I'm going to go into the scriptures. The title is Iran War. China sabotaging U.S. air superiority with a big fighter jet move for Tehran. So now Tehran is giving them the J-20's.
Ahead of Benjamin Netanyahu's high-stakes meeting with Donald Trump, Iran's key Asian ally has staged a quiet but pointed air power signal, underscoring that Tehran is not isolated as pressure builds over its nuclear and regional policies. At a formal ceremony in Tehran, China's military attaché ceremonially handed over a model of the J-20 stealth fighter to Iran's Air Force chief, turning a routine diplomatic encounter into a visible symbol of military affinity. The event itself marked the Air Force's traditional pledge of allegiance to Imam Khomeini, the founder of the Islamic Republic, blending religious political ritual with a carefully framed message of external support. Photos from the meeting clearly show the Chinese J-20 Mighty Dragon model prominently presented and displayed, inviting speculation about what kind of future cooperation it might foreshadow. Iranian media quickly hailed the model as more than a gift, hinting that it could signal deeper technology ties with Beijing and even the possibility of future access to advanced combat aircraft. Meanwhile, on February 4th, video emerged online showing a Russian Mi-28NE attack helicopter flying over Tehran, adding another layer to the picture of Iran's evolving air power links. That footage has fueled speculation that Iran has started to receive advanced Russian combat aircraft and helicopters, potentially upgrading its air arsenal just as tensions with the West spike. The Chengdu J-20 is China's flagship fifth-generation stealth fighter, built to dominate air superiority missions and carry out precision strike roles deep inside contested airspace. The J-20 first took to the skies in 2011 and entered frontline service with the People's Liberation Army Air Force around 2017, rapidly becoming a key asset in Beijing's high-end air combat fleet. Many analysts view the J-20 as China's answer to America's F-22 and F-35, designed to challenge US and allied air power by combining stealth, long-range, and advanced sensors. For Iran, access to a true fifth-generation fighter would be transformative, replacing an aging pre-1979 fleet with aircraft able to survive modern air defenses and project power far beyond its borders. At present, Iran still relies heavily on legacy American-made jets and older Soviet designs, kept flying through patchwork upgrades and domestic overhauls after decades of sanctions. China remains Iran's top trade partner, buying large volumes of its oil and funneling investment into infrastructure.
Pretty much overlapping what was said in the last, or I should say previous video. But, this is a game changer, because really the only thing that could rival a Su-57 and Western arsenal is perhaps the F-47, man, which no one has seen in combat yet. The Su-57, I'm sure, was designed to effectively be more maneuverable than the F-22. I don't really think that the Russians really wanted to emphasize on extreme stealth. They wanted that thing to be able to maneuver and spin around like a helicopter and then, shoot those advanced air-to-air missiles, man, which is gonna, mollywop America's air forces as they, boast about having this, combat record that was fought against the equivalent of stone throwers, militarily. But now they're about to face peer-to-peer armies, you know, and they're gonna get their YT ass handed to them. Their Edomite ass handed to them according to the prophecies. When you read in the book of Jeremiah, which I went into it the previous lesson, it talks about how Babylon's armies are going to be completely destroyed, man. And how else would those nations be able to set themselves in a battle array against America that nothing comes in and nothing comes out? But this is so I'm going to use Copilot a little bit. So I'm going to just focus on Ezekiel 38 and 4 through 7, because now we're starting to see prophecy speaking, right? So now let me start at the top. This is Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 1. It says, prophecy about Gog and future invasion of Israel. It says, and the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, right? Which this is dealing with Russia, which they now occupy that land that was once regions of Japhet, and it's a mix, but predominantly ran by Edomites, which the founders of Russia were Jake. I believe the last nobility was the Romanovs, which were Jakes, right? It says the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal and prophesy against him and say, thus saith Yahweh, behold, I'm against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back, right? So now you're starting to see slowly but surely Russia being turned back from their once pretty much determined drive to enhance, I'll say, relations with the West, as we were, as we got the privilege of getting that little history lesson during the Vladimir Putin Tucker Carlson interview. Which even Vladimir Putin, and then you have other documentaries, and I believe others have said it. Russia was once trying to be a NATO. Russia wanted to be equal partners with the United States. But as we see through prophecy, that's not the spirit that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem HaChodash has in mind. So now the Most High is controlling the Russian leadership, and directing them in the way in which he wants them to go, which that way is to construct a coalition of nations of the North, the Northern Hemisphere, and go to war with the daughter of Babylon, which is America, man. It says, and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth in all thy army, horses and horsemen, which is, their military You got the modern day horse of the military would have to be the tank. You know, also those carrier launchers that launch those nuclear missiles. It says all of them, all the other military hardware for that matter, man. The fighter jets, the cargo planes, the refueling planes, the bombers, the drones, right? It says all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, right? Because around 2010, maybe in 2011, Vladimir Putin set his generals down and told them to prepare for Armageddon, man. And then you started to see a lot of not retro, because retro meaning back, but you start to see a lot of modernization of the Russian army in their military hardware, and that's something I'm into too. Kind of disappointed that strap4.com is no longer around because that showed a lot of the newer weapons, the futuristic weapons that were coming about, man. That's why, certain these weapons that they're using now, you know, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, was being reported on, I'll say roughly over a decade ago, you know. Um, it says even the great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Verse 5, Persia, which I believe it was in 1935, Persia changed its name to Iran. Let me see, let me make sure. Yeah, March 21st, 1935. It says the name Iran has ancient roots derived from the word Aryan, meaning land of the Aryans, right? So it says Persia officially changed its name to Iran on March 21st, 1935, right? So this is the nation in which you see they're sinning, they're trying to sin, or they finalized the deal to sin. They're top of the line, fifth generation fighter jets, man. You know, and then you have Moab, which is the Chinese. They're sending their fifth generation fighter jet. If not a fifth generation, it might be a fourth generation plus plus to Iran, man. Which all those jets are superior to, the United States aircraft, in my opinion. You know, I think any Sukhoi, as they call it, Sukhoi, I believe will trump, those, still in commission fighter jets from the 80s, man, like the F-16, they still use, you know, uh, the F-18, you know, even with their souped up versions, man. The only chance, America may have would be with the F-47 and the F-22. Because even the F-35, which is, the stealth version of a F-16, it's limited by its speed. And the Su-57 has superior speed than the F-35. And it has, I guess you could say, better air-to-air weapons, because the F-35 is more of a multi-role fighter. Ground targets, air-to-air targets, reconnaissance. so on and so forth. You know, so yeah, this is a game changer, man. And now you see why Trump is hesitant to, initiate this war, and how it's setting the stage for a Amalekite false flag attack to draw them out. It says Ethiopia and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomar, which is Turkey, and all his bands, the house of Togomar, which, some say Armenia, so, Armenia region, Azerbaijan region of the north quarters, and all his bands and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. So now you're seeing Russia, China, these peer-to-peer superpowers starting to protect their interests, protect their allies. And what does that mean for America? It means destruction. So going to AI, Ezekiel 38:4 is focusing on, I will turn thee back, put hooks into thy jaws. Keyword breakdown, turn thee back, the Hebrew shu, shab, to redirect, reverse course, force a return. Hooks, Hebrew ha, literal animal control hook, symbolic of divine manipulation. Jaws, Hebrew laha, the seat of control, meaning Yahweh is steering nations like beast, right? So let me get Proverbs 21:1. I want to quote verbatim. This is Proverbs 21, chapter 21, verse 1. It says, the king's heart, which by now you should know that, your heart is your mind, right? So, these rulers, these presidents, these kings, their mind is in the hand of Yahweh. So there's no such thing as free will, man. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua controls everything. It says, as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but Yahweh pondereth the hearts, So it's the Heavenly Father that has control over actions of men, right? Which this is something Esau doesn't understand, man. He's being led to his own destruction through his own actions. This is Job chapter 12, verse 23. It says, he increaseth the nations, and didn't he not increase the nations through colonialism, and stealing of their resources, oppressing them? So these nations will have to go to him because, they've been reduced basically to nothing, man. And that's why he mocks them and calls them third world countries, which before he came, these nations were very rich with resources, man. Venezuela has the fourth or third world's oil reserves, but yet its economy crashed a couple years ago, and they were eating each other, man, eating dogs and cats. Why is that? Because so-called white man Esau, he's over there dictating, those people after he done stole and, their resources, man. Because I'm not saying specifically this time. He's just extending his power upon them. But America been had control over Central and South America, man, and America's been draining them dry. You know, it says and destroyed them, right? So he increases these nations. Oh shit, I had that wrong. It's not what that's talking about. It's talking about the Most High increasing nations. Let me go to the top. Right. Salakia. I should have read after that. I should have read into the top. But yeah, it's talking about it's not talking about Esau. It's talking about Yahweh that increases the nations, as we read as Job speaks of the power of the Most High. So Salakia, I should have read up. But we can still keep going. There's nothing wrong with admitting to a mistake, and there's nothing wrong with correcting yourself, right? But this is Job chapter 12, verse 23 again. It says, He increaseth the nations and destroyed them. And that's what Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua has done with America. And, the rest of these nations, He increased them, constructed them or brought them to the level that they are today, man. And even in that increase, it says, and destroyed them. He destroys nations as well, man. It says, He enlargeth the nations and straightened them and strengthening them again, meaning he reduces them. As you have that word, colon. He coals them, right? It says, He taketh away the heart or the mind of the chief of the people of the earth, and causes them to wander in the wilderness where there is no way. Right, causing them to make mistakes. It says they grope in the dark without light, without knowledge, and He maketh them to stagger like a drunken man. And that's exactly what's going on with America and Donald Trump, man. He has put a real Donald Trump reminds me of an individual that is dumb but think that they're smart, or think that they're intelligent, because smart doesn't even have nothing to do with intelligence. It has its original definition goes back to the word pain, which then later on evolved to sharp, and then it evolved to certain sayings, and then it started to carry the definition of being intelligent. But smart really means pain. But you see how Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua has put that type of spirit in this type of leader. And you're starting to see all the mistakes that he's making. Even if, even to the point where Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua has even deceived and blinded his supporters into thinking that he's doing the right thing. He's just leading this place to the finalization of the word of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, man. The fulfillment of prophecies. Right. Yeah. Salakia once again about not reading up and getting the full context. And the water Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua for, putting the spirit on me to catch it. and to correct it. I ain't saying that to sound any type of way. That's what I normally do. It's the things I normally say. I'm not trying to convince man or men or nothing, man. This is just between me and Yahweh Bashim and Yahweh Shah. That's why I said seek out your own salvation. So let's go on 4 and 5. I'll just start at the top again. It says prophecies about Babylon, which Babylon is dealing with America. It's Isaiah chapter 13, verse 1, the burden of Babylon, which Isaiah, the son of Amoz, did see. Lift ye up a banner, which that banner represents the truth, upon the high mountain, the top government, right? Exalt the voice onto them, which is, these scriptures, these prophecies. Shake the hand, dealing with condemning them, sentencing them, that they may go into the gates of the nobles, which, AI previously broke it down as being checkpoints, referring to the ancient world, but it's going to the, I guess I could say the ears of the elite, the upper echelon in society, the nobles, the nobility, right? It says, I have commanded my sanctified ones, which is, the elect. It says, I have also called my mighty ones, which are the angels, for my anger, even them that rejoice in my highness. And, the elect and the angels are the only ones that are rejoicing in the highness of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, because they're the only ones that are programmed to do such. It says the noise of a multitude in the mountains, which is, people, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together, which that's going to lead to the mountain of troops, which is going to be in the Levant, dealing with the word Armageddon, which is a place. It says Yahweh hosts, which host goes into the word armies, mustereth the host, the armies of the battle. So he's putting it in the minds of these people, these men, these leaders, these militaries to go to war with each other, man. And that's what we're seeing now. It says they come from a far country, which this is dealing from, the Russia areas, and wherever else in that region in which they are going to shoot those nuclear missiles. It says from the end of heaven, even Yahweh and the weapons of his indignation, because the spirit of the Heavenly Father is going to be in those missiles, guiding them, and also intensifying the fire, right? It says in the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land, which that word land, of course, as you see, is singular, dealing with a specific land, which is America. So let's go to Second Ezra, chapter 13. I think it said, right? 15. Oh, I gotta go to 13. Anyway. So this is Second Ezra, chapter 15, verse in the 30s. 28. This is Second Ezra chapter 15, verse 28. It says, "Behold, a horrible vision," which this is, dealing with the sight of destruction, the sight of war, you know, the sight of, like I said, war. It says, "In the appearance thereof from the east," which is going to happen in the eastern hemisphere, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots. All those Arabian states, something is going to happen that they're all going to come together and they're going to come against Israel and America, which could be tied to the fact that, could be tied to the oil, man. It says, "And the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble." And they depict that in, certain video games that the Pentagon has heavy influence over. So they've been war planning for this exact scenario. And they lose every single time. Verse 30, it says, "Also the Carmanians," which the Carmanians, going back to the word Carmen, was an ancient province of Iran, which before 1935 was called Persia. It says, "Raging in wrath shall go forth as the wild boars," and got the chance to hear a brother break down, or adding on to the breakdown of the wild boars, which, you know, uh, he said that they're very aggressive, defending themselves, just as, you know, all animals are, when their brain perceives death, or risk or danger. It's the the flight or fight, response. And some animals have that more than others, but yeah, the wild boar is a very defensive animal when cornered, a very destructive animal. And a lot, even here in the states, wild boars, they'll kill you, man. They kill a lot of those hunters, you know, especially if they don't know what they're doing. It says, "Also the Carmanians raging in wrath shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them." So Iran is going to be joining an ally, joining and allying with those Arab states, those Arabian nations, man. Right? It says, "And shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians," which is those Middle Eastern areas in which the United States have their military bases, man. They're all those of you that are still out there and are in the army. You're about to be destroyed, and then the cleanup crew or the replacements, you know, um, you're going to be destroyed too. And the replacements after that, and the replacements after that, and the replacements after that, man. And then those replacements, even if they make it, they're not going to have a home to come back to, because America is going to be destroyed by nuclear fire, right? These are prophecies. These are things that are soon to take place because it already happened in another dimension, man. You know, America can't defeat prophecy. It says, and then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering their nature, which is talking about Ishmael, man. And Ishmael, he's a wild man. And if they shall turn themselves, conspiring together in great power to persecute them. So why would they turn themselves? Because they're tired of America's bullshit, basically. They see what they're trying to do, the plan of greater Israel entails them being underneath those Amalekites' feet, man. And the juice has ran out for you Edomites and your so-called white supremacy, man. Now the whole creation is about to be on your ass. It says, conspiring together in great power to persecute them. Then these shall be troubled, bled, and keep silence through their power and shall flee. So America's going to be getting his ass handed to him, man. They're going to be troubled, bled. Let's look up that word, man. Well, that's what we're going to do.
Hi there, Michael.
What I want to do. What does troubled, bled mean? All right, so it says, troubled bled isn't a standard dictionary phrase. It's a poetic construction. That's why it hits with that raw symbolic energy. But we can break it down with precision so you see exactly what it communicates. Meaning breakdown. Troubled equals disturbed, shaken, agitated. This signals inner conflict, emotional unrest. And that's going to be, if Trump is still in power, man, he's going to be, double minded and displaying emotional unrest, man. Something weighing on the mind or spirit. Yeah, again, it not going according to plan because they got punched in the mouth, man. As the saying of Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. It said it's not just worried, it's unsettled at the core. And, it might be some way, somehow that these nations have the ability to just shut off, Esau's military, man. And if they don't have the ability, how about Shem Shah sure does. Because it's going to be something that these nations are going to have the ability to do to be the reason why America's armies are destroyed and destroyed significantly enough to not be able to defend a blockade against it. And this is what these Edomites are not expecting, man. 2, it says bled equals drained, poured out, exposed. Not literal blood, symbolic. Energy spent, strength leaked out. Running out of weapons, running out of, military men. Something taken from you, a cost paid. It's the aftermath of struggle. Together, troubled bled, when you combine them, the phrase means a person who has been so troubled that it drained them emotionally, spiritually, mentally, leaving them exposed or emptied. Or more poetically, the struggle made me bleed out the parts of myself I was holding in. It's the image of someone who didn't just feel trouble, they bled from it, meaning the trouble left a mark, took something, or forced something out. Why it feels powerful, it compresses a whole emotional arc into 2 words: the conflict, the cost, the transformation. It's kind it's the kind of phrase you use to describe someone who's been through something heavy and came out changed. Yeah, because he's gonna come out destroyed. There's gonna be a change in the places, man. He's gonna see his power slip, you know. Um, I'm gonna be right here. Let me see. I'm gonna go back to Second Ezra's. It says, "And keep silence through their power, and shall flee." So you're gonna see a lot of Afghanistan 2.0s again, man. And there's video and reports of those America clearing those Middle Eastern bases that are targeted. And Iran was flying drones where their new location was at, and makeshift hotels. And uh, I believe it was China supplied Iran with visuals of where the Americans' defense, uh, missile defense, is located in Jordan, man, through satellite. So this is not a war that America is even capable of winning. Despite Ed Revenant's, you know, $2 million car, against someone who is determined with a $2 million car beater. It says, "And from the land of the Assyrians shall the enemy besiege them." So they're going to be surrounding those different American militaries, and consume some of them. They're going to destroy some of them. "And in their host, in their armies, shall be fear and dread." And, the Most High is going to put it on these soldiers in America, not to want to fight, man, because they're not built for wars. Because, a soft, easy, peasy, lemon squeezy society has made them all soft. It's not the 70s and it's not the 60s anymore. The last couple of generations that created men, you know. So it says in strife among their kings, which, there's going to be infighting amongst whatever administration is in office. So going back to AI, it says this is Yahweh forcing geopolitical escalation, not random politics. Nations think they're acting independently, but prophecy is the real engine. Ezekiel 38:5, keyword breakdown: Persia. We went through this. Modern Iran, Ethiopia, and in Hebrew is Cush. Region south of Egypt includes Sudan, Ethiopia, Libya, Hebrew Put, North African region west of Egypt, which Psalms 83 has to do with Esau's alliance and the alliance of taking Jake down and erasing, their identity and enslaving them, which is not dealing per se with today, as we're focusing on the northern armies, the North Alliance with Russia, right? So I want to go to Joel, which is a key scripture for this lesson, which provided a little inspiration. This is Joel chapter 3, verse 9. It says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles," which is The Gentiles in this particular verse is referring to the heathen nations because they're the ones with the military or the militaries, voice or seat on the world stage. It says, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, and you're starting to see, farmers, becoming soldiers. It says, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares in the swords. So once being plowshare is a farming instrument for farming, and a sword is a striking instrument for killing, or even a cutting instrument. Which this is talking about, these nations once being more of an agricultural economy driven, to an industrialized economy driven, having factories and lines, factory lines, and so on and so forth. It says, and your pruning hooks and the spears, let the weak say I am strong. And these nations, looked at as, weak and easy to play with, I guess. Now they're saying they're strong because they have the nuclear missile. They have a nuclear weapon that can cause great destruction. It says, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones, which is the angels, to come down, O Yahweh. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, Yahweh's judgment, which the angels is going to be orchestrating it all, man, destroying all those nations and their armies. It says, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. And there's not going to be anything they could do because, mind you, there's no such thing as free will. And a man's goings is of the Lord, man. You're controlled. We're all controlled. I'm controlled by the Heavenly Father, man, and His Son, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Right? It says, put you in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. So, judgment has to go down. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon shall be darkened because of nuclear winter, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. Yahweh also shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake. But Yahweh will be the hope of his people. The heavens and the earth shaking is dealing with the destruction and, the great earthquake. It says, in the strength of the children of Yasha'Allah, so shall you know that I am Yahweh, your power, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain, his separated government. Then shall Jerusalem be holy, be separate, dealing with you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous. And there shall no strangers, none of these heathen nations like Esau, so-called white man, coming in and, rape, robbing, and murdering you, and forcing you into slavery, and cannibalizing you, and being a sexual deviant against you, right? Pass through her anymore. So going back to co-pilot, I'm going to skip Jeremiah 46:9, but this is a GMS style commentary. It says, this is the Eastern African bloc aligning militarily, exactly what we see forming in modern geopolitics. Prophecy outlines the alliances long before they manifest. Then it goes into Gomar, regions associated with Eastern Europe, Turkey, Togomar, Armenia, Turkey region historically tied to northern military powers. North quarters, prophetic shorthand of northern military coalitions. Let's see if I want to continue because I didn't want to make this video too long. Yeah, because I already broke it down anyway in the beginning. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end it on this because I didn't want to make this video too long. But yeah, the point being was in Joel, the 3rd chapter, the 9th through 11th verse. So, with that, if I don't make a part 2, later on, then, off to the next one, because by the time this video is uploaded, it's going to be old news anyway. So I hope with that, at least one brother of the elect was edified. And I'm going to say shalom.